Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always joined by Callum and James in the studio. How you going, guys?
Good.
We have two special guests. One special guest.
One
Alan's
normal
not
guest.
that special. He's here most of the time when he's back in Melbourne. But we have a very special guest this week. We are joined by Aaron McJames, who is the director, writer, producer, did everything for the movie we're reviewing, which is very exciting for us.
Yeah.
We're talking about Astro Loco.
Yeah. Shot in Melbourne, wasn't it?
Yes, it was shot in Melbourne, and thanks for having me on the show.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. This is a big deal for us.
This is our most very specialist episode, I think.
Yeah, usually we yell into the void a little bit and hope people listen.
Usually our special episode just means we're going to rant about Star Wars for 2 hours. So this is an actual special episode.
Yeah. Look, for a bit of context, obviously, COVID, it's been a long year for everybody. And quite a while ago, Aaron sent Callum and James, and me, but I didn't accept it, a message being like, look, I've made this movie called Astro Loco. I'd like you guys to watch it and maybe review it on the show if you'd like it. And, COVID keeps happening.
Yeah, we were in lockdown for a long time.
I think James sent him a message like, look, we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
With everything as it is, the show's kind of on a standstill. And we did end up getting around to watching it, and he's kindly agreed to come on the show and talk about it.
Yeah. At very short notice.
But James messaged him yesterday.
Yeah.
So
I flew in by chopper. It was great.
Yeah, that's it. We had to roll
Red
out
carpet.
the
Tuesday Review chopper
The
picks you up.
security's waiting outside. Look, it's good to have a very special guest for once. This is a first for the show, and we've done hundreds of episodes in this show and the old show combined.
Yeah.
So it's something a bit
And
different
it's also
for us
good
as well.
to have someone who's made a movie rather than us just assuming things about the filmmaker like we usually do.
Yeah, we're the kings of speculation.
Yeah, this time we can actually ask you. It's like, what did you mean by this?
We have a bona fide director on the show.
No, and you've actually said it was a movie, so I'm wrapped.
It is. It does exist. It's actually, we should mention, it's Astro Loco. It's on Amazon Prime Video, so you can watch it now.
And it's free on Tubi as well.
And
wow.
on Tubi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this episode and you haven't watched the movie, pause the episode, watch the movie, and then you can listen to the rest of the episode. Or listen to the episode and then watch the movie, because we'll be
informing
talking,
context and all that.
behind the scenes and lots of insights from Aaron about the how he made the movie and so on.
Yeah.
So,
And you can grab it on Google Play as well if you don't want to watch the ads on Tubi or you don't have Prime.
cool.
Beautiful.
One quick question: we were speculating before the show, right? Now,
No, you were speculating.
I was speculating.
What?
Now, the ships in the the space scenes, the ships, are they miniatures or are they CG?
They're CG.
Thank you. Thank
Wow.
you.
You made them to look like models though, right?
Yeah,
Like the way you rendered them or whatever the word is.
I did. Now, I had some help with some students from RMIT University.
Okay.
And, they're just starting out and all that sort of stuff. So we didn't really want to hit them up with, full spec Hollywood CG. And we knew the film was, we'd already shot it by this stage. So we knew it was daggy. It was always going to be daggy. So the directive was to make it lo-fi.
Yeah.
This actually blows my mind. I was 100% convinced they were real models, like actual models you were just like moving across the screen. And one of my friends watched a trailer and he goes to me, I want to know, like, were they using pulleys to move the models? So it didn't even occur to me that it was CG.
I did a lot of the motion in post, and I did put a very subtle sort of perspective sort of shift that you would get if you were using, film on a model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It comes.
maybe that has
That's probably
triggered something.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
fascinating.
I feel very
I guess-
vindicated. Thank you.
Yeah, wow.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. We liked the effect, whatever. It was. Well, I guess we should start by saying it's a sci-fi, lo-fi sci-fi comedy. Would you describe it that way, or am I just?
No. I certainly would. Now, the comedy's an interesting one because when I wrote it, I wanted it to be mildly amusing.
Okay.
Because I didn't want it to take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have to think about sticking a genre on it until it was released. And then you're going, what do you do? Do you tell people it's a comedy and then they go, well, I didn't laugh my butt off, so is it that funny? Or do you not tell people it's a comedy and they go, hang on, what's going on here?
Yeah. It's like, why isn't this serious? You told me it was this. Yeah.
A science fiction movie with a lot of humor in it.
Yeah. I guess the movie is hard to pinned down into one specific thing.
I thought
not
it was
just-
one specific movie. I thought it was like a cheesy comedy in the beginning, and then by the end, it's a completely different movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The third
hard
act really tips everything on its head.
it gets existential.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later. But yeah, like, can you give us like a synopsis so people know like what we're talking about?
Yes, a synopsis. Gee,
Just-
I've typed many a synopsis. I've never had to
Okay.
actually
Speak-
like freeball one. So,
Do it in rhyming.
look, the synopsis is that it's the year 2074, and we've got a crew on their way to Callisto, which is a moon of Jupiter, and there's a lot of space madness going on. They're over it. They've had enough, and you know, something happens, and they're sort of put to the test, and it's the spaceship AI is responsible for the crew, and he's not really sure how he's going to deal with it. He needs to step up.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, to make it easy for people to get in their mind, I guess it's got shades of Alien, shades of 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Shades of Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
Yeah, shades of Red Dwarf. So it's that kind of, like, Space Truckers kind of esque. Like, because you've got this crew of
Professionals on their way to
astronauts
to form a
guess.
base, I believe, on Callisto.
Well, they're gonna meet. They're
Yes,
gonna
they
meet
are.
the base.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
that's correct.
So I consciously wanted to mash up a lot of tropes from the genre. I didn't think I was doing anything new.
No. But like because the movie's about the characters. I would say, like, it's about that core group
Yes.
of astronauts. And so it gave me those Alien vibes of like them sitting around the table, because the movie opens with them playing this ridiculous board game.
Yeah, I had one of my notes.
Called
Is, can you
Possession.
explain the rules to
that made
Possession?
me laugh because it looked like a cross between like the Star Trek sort of multi-level chess and like the board games that Marshall makes in How I Met Your Mother. Like that kind of really weird game that's a bit silly, but you don't quite know the rules. But that doesn't matter because they know the rules.
Can we please get a like official merchandise possession board game?
Look, to be honest, we just said to the people looking after the props, I said, "Well, just get whatever you can.
Yeah.
Get Chinese checkers, mahjong, some cards, some dice.
There's some little like plastic farm animals, which I thought was
yeah,
great.
and the farm animals were just completely came out of left field, and it was just, we said to everyone, just incorporate everything. It's all on the table. You understand this game, nobody else does.
Which is kind of the fun. It's kind of the fun
Yeah.
of it.
It's world building, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of this world of like, because it's the start of the movie, so it's like, okay, they're doing something.
They're mid game when you first enter
they're
the
doing
scene.
something offbeat at the start. Well, I mean, I don't know if we should go back a bit and talk about like how the movie came about. Like, when did you write it, and like how did it eventually get made?
Yeah, sure. That's that. It was a long time ago. It was 2014, and streaming was relatively new. It had been around, but it was gaining popularity. And I think at that stage, a lot of the big studios were yet to commit to the streaming as a legitimized, platform. We saw the windows of theatre and TV and all that sort of stuff. And there were a lot of B-grade films that were getting a lot of traction on Sci-Fi Channel and stuff. A lot of things like Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus and all that. And like Sharknado was like the Citizen Kane of these films.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd previously tried to get films made. I'd had two options in the past that had taken 3 years to play out, which was, no, sorry, you can't make the film. So that's like, 6 years is a long time to spend out, not making films. I'd made some shorts and so forth. And so I thought, well, this interest in these B films, maybe that's an inroad.
Yeah.
And so let's just do it. I naively underestimated how difficult it would be to make a film by yourself with no money.
Yeah.
And in the 6 or so years this film took to get made, that interest in those kind of films completely dried up.
Yeah.
And so here I am.
The landscape completely changed.
Yeah. So here I am left carrying the can, basically, going, okay, I've got this lo-fi film.
Well, the B movie is a lost art, unfortunately. We went down in this studio. We went down the B movie hole a couple of years ago. I started watching Deathstalker, all kinds of strange B movies that you get on like some of the cheaper streaming services. And we were actually talking about it. What makes them so great is the use of practical. It's like low budget stuff. Like the story can't be too sprawling. It kind of has to be really focused. But also, it's just because like one of our big pet peeves is CGI done really badly, and it's like B movies kind of changed and they became this whole like really schlocky looking CGI kind of thing. Whereas the B movies of the 80s, it was all rubber swords or whatever, and it was like the cheap practical effects. But it holds up. I won't say well, but it holds up kind of. And so you get these really charming kind of B movies, and so it's like we were complaining that there's not enough anymore. And so that's what I think one of the things that I loved about Astro Loco was it was not cheap looking, because I actually think the movie looks awesome. Like the actual picture quality is great.
We were talking about before you got here. We've seen higher budget movies look worse.
Yeah.
Cosmic Sin with Bruce Willis is on my list for the next review roundtable. It's like $100 million movie, but it looks cheap.
Yeah.
So like I won't say like cheap looking, but like the you don't have a huge budget. There's not like big explosions and car chases and all that kind of thing. So it's nice to see that someone's making movies that are a bit not quicker to make, because who knows how long a movie takes to get made, but a bit cheaper, a bit easier to make than maybe like $100 million Marvel movie or a Star Wars film.
Yeah, I mean, it was just shot with a DSLR. I think the look that you're talking about, a lot of that is just attributed to spending time in the color grade. Which I did when I realised no one else would color grade it for me. I had to do it myself.
One of the big props to the movie is how I think it uses darkness as well, which sort of helps. It doesn't I'd say if it was a really brightly lit, you could maybe tell the budget was a little bit lesser. Like I think the use of darkness and shadows really helps the movie seem like in your mind's eye you're like, oh yeah, this is like I could be in space. I could be.
Did you shoot it, or was there a DP?
Yeah, there was a DP. Okay. Yeah, there was. And he did a good job. I mean, we had no time to really set anything up. And, we had literally no money for sets or anything. I mean, the reason it's so tight is because the sets don't exist beyond the shot. I mean, those...
That's why the darkness fills in the blanks in your imagination.
Yeah, exactly. You have to use your imagination more about they're in a spaceship, because you can't really see the rest of the environment, but it works well for the movie. Like, the shots of Nick's son, Sebastian, he's like vaping on the couch or whatever. That looked amazing on my OLED.
Yeah, that looked good. That was a good shot.
Like, because, especially with a good television, you have like the
Runner
black, it's sort of, obviously it just looks a lot higher quality than some of the other movies we've seen recently.
I mean, that's the only reason he's vaping, because when this shot needs something.
Yeah,
and thought it'd be nice for the light to travel through his vape.
Yeah. Because you have a background in visual effects, is that right? No. Well, I think I read that somewhere.
Yes and no. I wouldn't say I'm a master visual effects artist. I was an animator on the ABC TV a long time ago.
Cool. Just because, like we were just saying, you were saying the sets are just the one small thing, but I kind of appreciate that that's what you tried to do, and because I've seen a lot of similar movies where it's just like they just put up the green screen and it's very obvious.
Yeah, I mean we do have a lot of green screen in this though.
But like when the characters are together, they're like there is that little set. I think the only big green screen set is the tennis court,
the gravity room.
Yeah.
Yes, I think, and of course the exterior space shots.
Yeah. But all the other interiors are like little set.
I mean, there is some complete hallway replacement in the chase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that chase was great.
Yeah. Look, not enough men in suits anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the cockroaches. Can we talk about the cockroaches?
Yeah, you can.
Spoiler alert for Astro Loco.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, there's a
Actually,
cockroach.
It's in the trailer, so I didn't spoil it. Yeah. Yeah, that was great. Because we were just I appreciate the effort that was put into the sets, even though they were sort of small and sort of simple, if you can say that.
Yeah. Well, one thing that surprised me was in the third act, we actually see Hetfield for the first time. So Hetfield's like a disembodied voice, the artificial intelligence that runs the
the
Araya.
HAL 9000.
Yes.
Yeah, but we actually see, I believe we see Hetfield's brain, so to speak, you know, like 2001 style. And that looks pretty cool. I do just want to run through how that was achieved.
Okay, so...
I'm sorry.
No. The reason I'm balking is because in my mind I'm going, gee, it's spray painted polystyrene, and he said it looks cool.
The lighting effect.
Oh,
is
we
nice,
never
though.
said we had taste.
Yeah, no, but that's what we're saying is like whatever effort you put in, even if it was just like simple, chuck this pipe here and chuck this light.
It's all
here,
movie magic. Yeah.
It all kind of comes together.
And I did darken that scene a lot. That's darkened so much just to try and take the edge off. The fact that is all really cheap stuff. But what happened was we had a great production designer, because we had no pre-production period for this at all, and the production designer was dumpster diving because we had no money for sets.
So if you had no pre-production, you just rocked up on set and said, "Put that there, let's shoot."
What I'd done in pre-production is I'd got the tracksuits that the crew wear, sweat Cetos they are. I had them sent over from the States, not surprisingly cheap. And I'd also had the spacesuits made. I had this idea.
Oh yeah.
I had this idea that, you know what, if I just got some welding gloves and some gumboots and a welding mask and put it all inside a onesie, people would go, yeah, these people are really bored, and they've put onesies over these spacesuits, and
I thought that was really funny.
People would imagine that there's a spacesuit under the onesie, but there's not. There's just towels, gaffer tape to their arms and stuff, and so I had some people make those suits to spec. I said, look, just really grunge up these onesies and put all this stuff together. And they did a great job. And so that's really all we had. And we just had some basic locations. We shot at RMIT University when it was empty. They had a green screen studio there. And
when was it shot? In 2020?
2015.
Oh, wow.
Way before COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was shot in 2015.
Wow, we were going to ask how it was shooting during COVID.
Yeah,
we
were
that
like,
question
this
sounds
must have been shot during the pandemic.
No, it wasn't shot. It was shot in 2015. And so what happened was the production designer was literally dumpster diving.
Yeah.
Because we had no money for anything else. I think the stuff he bought was probably some PVC pipe and some silver paint. I think that's all he bought.
Yeah.
The rest he was just dumpster diving and just making stuff like doors and just, things, and he was just sort of making it up as he went.
Yeah. No, it has that really cool...
It doesn't look like it. It looks like you had a set designer, and it looks like you had a proper production crew. Yeah,
and it's sort like we always talk, like Callum just before was talking about older B movies and how they have a better feeling. It's like the more tangible, the better.
Yeah.
So like whether you just slapped a whole bunch of things together, it doesn't matter. It's like because it has that like feel to it.
Yeah, especially like 20 years down the line, for example. It's like, I won't say movies like Deathstalker hold up, because that's a lie. But like the puppets are real, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's in 20 years, I'm still gonna be like, puppets.
Yeah, cockroach.
Yeah. Whereas in 20 years, our notion of CG might have updated so much that like you'll look at something and be like, oh, that looks as bad as Escape Room 2. For example, like, you know what I mean? Like CG.
That's a callback from a long time ago.
Yeah, like CG can either hold up or it can, in 10 years down the line, we'll all cringe at it. Or in some cases, we'll cringe at it today when like big Hollywood movies come out now.
Yeah.
But no, we went all out on that cockroach. Actually, that's like the diamond in the crown. Yeah, that's like a $300 cockroach.
on the topic,
that's where all your budget went. It's like we've got to make the cockroach look good.
On the topic of CG, one of my notes was the crowd effects in the gravity room. I actually thought they were really cool. Like they look cheap, but I'm like that actually looks like something an AI would think of as a crowd reaction.
Yeah. So you shot it in 2015.
Yeah.
Was the visual effects done more recently, or was it all kind of finished back then, and then you've just kind of?
So it was written in 2014.
Yeah.
It was shot in 2015. The visual effects were done in 2015 and 2016.
Okay.
And then it took me maybe 2 years to composite all that, because a lot of students did the CG and so forth.
Yeah.
And the thing about the students that we had working on it, they're really talented. but also they're inexperienced, so they're not really used to finishing things. So it's kind of like saying, hey, students, can you make me a car? Because you know they can. And they go, yeah, great. And they make all this fantastic stuff. And then at the end, when it's ready to deliver, you hear this beep, 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 and you look in your front yard and a truck is dumping car parts on your front lawn.
Yeah.
And you're going, these are quality parts, but
it's not
all.
yeah, but who's going to put it together?
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years to
smooth it all
to do that, like working and so forth. You've only got so many hours a week that you can spend on it. So
no, it paid off. It looks good.
Well, thank you.
It's a good looking movie. Well,
it is. Yeah.
The last shot of the movie is like with the two ships and
head full of Dorothy,
Jupiter.
yeah.
I was like, wow, that looks really.
No,
cool.
like it was genuinely surprising. Obviously we knew this was a B movie going in. We watched the trailer and everything, and I think okay, it's a B movie, but the actual quality of the camera work, the director of photography, he did an amazing job. And just like the feel of the movie, it really surprised me because I thought I was going to get an average B movie, but I got a good B movie.
Yeah,
which we don't get that much of
It
anymore.
didn't feel completely like a B movie.
No,
I felt like this could be like
it's
just like
I want to see what this movie is with a $100 million budget.
yeah, exactly. It felt like it was like a made for streaming film, but like there was no shaky cam, which is a huge deal. I was watching it, I'm like, they put thought into these shots because there's not a hand cam moving around everywhere. I'm like, the shots were thought out beforehand, which means like there's like effort went into it, as opposed to some movies you get on streaming, which are just kind of, we've got $1,000, let's just blurt something out and get a credit.
Aaron was saying before that it was kind of hard to find a home for the movie because before streaming took off, I couldn't go on the Sci-Fi Channel, whatnot or whatever, and now streaming it's a little bit harder. But I feel like it's a reasonable time for the B movie. Did you find it easier now to get it onto Tubi and everything else because like I guess the barrier of entry with some of these free streaming services, is it lower, or how hard was it to get it on like a streaming service like Amazon Prime?
Well, in regards to distributors, I always wanted to go with the distributor Indie Rights because Indie Rights have a different distribution model that suits independent filmmakers. The current distribution model suits big studio productions, and the indie filmmaker it's not really tailored to them, and they're the ones who lose out in that model. So I always wanted to go with Indie Rights. Fortunately, Indie Rights accepted it. I worked through their long list of deliverables, stuff I'm going, well, what do I have to do here? What do you want? Figured all that out, sent the hard drive off to LA, and a few months later I get an email saying you're on Amazon Prime. So
oh wow.
So in terms of how hard was it, I don't know. I don't know if they had to.
Yeah, that's a question for them. You just did the checklist and then
you just did. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought it was like an indie movie. It was going to be you sort of shopping it around.
Yeah, I thought you would have to take it on a hard drive around to.
Yeah, we have this idea of what it's all like in Hollywood because we know everything in the studio. I was going to say, like, of course, this is my question's redundant because it, you made this film in 2014, but I actually put like, why not Stan or why not something like Vice? Like, why was Amazon Prime an option? But that's this kind of leads into my next question. I was going to say, what's next for Aaron McJames? Like, what's your next like year or two look like in terms of film? And like, would you change anything with your next project?
Absolutely. I wouldn't spend another 6 or 7 years, working on a movie. It's extremely tiresome.
Yeah.
And draining.
Especially for it not to come to fruition if it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you were saying before with other projects.
Yeah, and look, I was very naive stepping into it. I mean, there's things that you just don't know, and every little, even like things like the closing credits. You go, yeah, closing credits, and you go, how do you actually do some closing credits? Yeah. What order does all this stuff go in? Like, and how do you make them look good? How do you get the scroll to be smooth and everything? And there's services you can pay for, but how do you do that for free? And so every little bit just takes time, and so I'm not as naive anymore. And I know if I'm going to spend 6 years making a film, I don't want it to be a small film like this, because the amount of hours I put into this, I went, it's fair. If you said this took X amount of hours to make, and it took a crew of 100 people that amount of hours in total, people go, yeah, that's cool, but just doing most of it yourself.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't do sound design, and there were some other things that I had help with, but the amount of time it took me, you're beginning to ruminate in your head, going, this isn't worth it. This isn't worth it. Like, is this my magnus opus? Like,
yeah, it took that. But I mean, I don't know, how can you change that? Would you just try to? I mean, you can't really artificially quicken the process.
No, so I think I would only make a film now if I could either A, do it quicker, so visual effects and green screens out the window. Let's do something without that, or get backing. Like have a producer that's interested and so forth. So that's what I would aim for next, is to take that progressive step into the the next tier up. I mean, obviously not millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars, but something that costs a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be easier now to, would say, get funding or backing for another project because you've had one under your belt, or is it still like a struggle, you think, because it's such a small production?
I honestly don't know. Part of the reason I did it was that the films that I'd had optioned previously, the sticking point was always, well, who's this guy you've got directing it? He's a nobody. And I think a producer that took one of my screenplays to the Cannes market said he had 3 interested parties in it, but they wanted to bring their own director to it. And I thought, well, if they're not going to let me direct this, what are they going to let me direct? So I said to him, no, it's either me or nobody. Because I wouldn't have got paid that much, and you'd wake up 10 years from now and go, gee,
and some guy ruins your script,
or you just go, that little bit of money I got was gone, and I didn't get a gig out of it. So was it even worth it? I should have just tried, and I did try, and I failed. Like, it didn't get made. So with this one, I thought, you know what? I'll greenlight it myself.
Yeah.
I'll just make something that's going to not cost anything, and I can just make. And so now that I've made it, the thing that's running through my mind is, has that done me a service or a disservice? I don't know. Like, does someone look at this and go, well, that's all he's good for, or hey, he's done all right with nothing. Let's give him a shot with some more.
As 4 nerds sitting in the studio, who've watched, or 3 nerds sitting in the studio who've watched your movie, and one who'll probably take our advice and say it's good. Look, it's like, at least it is a good movie. So it's like, you can see all the problems with the movie can really just be attributed to the fact that it had no budget
and time.
And so, like, if you can look past that, then obviously there's promise.
Well, that's something I want to talk about. Is what I liked about the movie were the characters and the way they were written.
Because like the Odd has that egomaniacal kind of mentality. Because,
like, obviously, like you said, like, you worked hard on the visual effects, and like we were just talking about, the kind of practical parts of the sets and stuff were great. But it's like, at the end of the day, why I enjoyed it, which, like Alan and Nathan was saying, it's like, if it had a bigger budget, I think it would have been, a lot more successful, is like, I like the interactions between the characters and the dynamics between all the characters.
Also, the fact that Hetfield interacts with all the crew differently. Yeah. So he has his own personal relationship with all the crew anyway. So you get an extra layer. Yeah. So I think that part of it was really strong. And the cast as well did a good job. I know David Argue.
Yes.
He was like semi-retired or went on hiatus for a long time.
Yes.
And then you sent him the script and he's like, cool.
Yep.
Can you talk about that? Because that's pretty impressive for you to be like, look, I have no money and we're just quickly shooting this thing.
He was in Gallipoli, which was a pretty big film.
Yeah. He's like an 80s Aussie.
He's an absolute icon.
Yeah.
I was thrilled to work with him.
Yeah.
So, I just contacted him. I just tracked him down and asked the question.
Stalked him for a little bit.
And, he was indecisive about it, and eventually he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it."
Oh, that's cool.
And and the way I was working is I tended to modify the characters to suit the person that was agreeing to do the role. Because you can't shop around. I haven't got a casting agent. I can't say get me this person. Or get me someone like this. So that's what I did. So I spent a lot of time with David, and we went through all the dialogue. And David, I'd say the line, and he'd say it how he would say it. And I would type that, type that into the script. So he reworked a lot of it and added his own sort of thing to that.
Our favorite character, and I think like the funniest, has all the best lines, is Sebastian. And like, because Nick's son who plays Sebastian, did you do the same process with him?
Yes.
Go through it and say
he's a comedian anyway.
Yes, he is.
So it would have been easy for him to be like,
to
this is a
deliver
comedy
the
movie.
lines,
Great, let's.
This is how I would say it.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
and the interesting thing about that is because I wanted there to be an international crew, and so I wanted someone to play the Chinese astronaut.
Yeah,
and there's not a lot of Asian representation on screen in Australia.
We complain about that a fair bit.
Yeah, and so therefore it's difficult to know where to go. Like, I don't know where to go to find an Asian actor. And so I don't know how long I spent looking at mugshots and videos and all sorts of things, and just trying to come up with someone that wasn't just an Asian Australian represented on screen, but someone with a unique outlook that sort of comes from left of centre that people aren't really expecting, And I also wanted someone that looks... the idea in my head was, I thought, well, in this film, the backstory might be that the Chinese government sent the poster boy into space.
Yeah.
And 2 years later...
He's starting to get to him.
He's turned into this wild man.
That was great, because like there's a bit where his parents tell him they've built another statue of him or something. So he's supposed to be this hero astronaut, but all this time in space has just
broken him.
Same with is it Lucian?
Yeah, Lucian.
Lucian.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the ship's doctor, right? But from the start of the movie, he's already lost it himself. And so he's like trying to give people advice, but he's not really there himself. I do like that you put in the effort to make it an international crew, because working on with tight restrictions like you did, it would be so easy to just say, these are Aussie astronauts on an Aussie ship.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you went the step further and said, no, this is actually a joint mission, like Sunshine or whatever other sort of space exploration movie.
Well, funnily enough, this film, and I can't pin it down, but it strangely gave me Solaris vibes. And I don't know if that's because everyone reacts differently to the cabin fever, so you get this kind of thing where people are reacting to external stimulus, but they can't pin it down correctly. But it's because they're kind of going a bit crazy, I guess. But that was an interesting point. I wrote that down. I'm like, Solaris vibes.
I'm not comparing myself in any way to Tarkovsky, but I suppose
if it helps, I think I liked your movie more than Tarkovsky's.
Well, my favourite space madness films are Dark Star and Solaris.
Yeah. There's definitely Dark Star vibes Astro Loco has.
Yeah, so while I didn't set out to replicate or consciously imitate, they certainly played out as the baseline.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. Madness in space is, that kind of...
We might be back with more from Aaron McJames after this quick break. You are back on the Tuesday Review, talking Astro Loco with the movie's director, writer, everything, Aaron McJames.
Yeah, so before the break, we're talking about the characters and the kind of international crew that I really liked, and the dynamic between the characters, and the fact that, you put that bit of extra effort in to make, the Russian astronaut actually speaks Russian, and was Odd Swedish or was he Norwegian?
That's played by Frank Handrum, who was born in Norway.
Okay, Norwegian. And And I like they've all got their flag. One thing I actually noticed was that they all had their country flags except for Lucian. And I was like, that's not the Aussie flag. What's going on? And I looked it up, and it's the Eureka flag.
Correct.
Which I thought was really cool. It adds to that world building element. Can you talk about like that decision, or was it just?
Yeah, well, I thought 2074. Are we really going to have the same flag by then? I'm not confident that we are.
Yeah.
And I thought let's just run with the fact that it was changed. And I honestly didn't know what flag to have. In fact, because I ordered all these patches on eBay and on the internet and all that sort of stuff, and I had two options sent to me. I had the boxing kangaroo sent to me, and I also had the Eureka the Southern Cross, and because I wanted to try them both out, and I wanted to look on the uniform and just go, which one am I feeling the best? And I thought, and I sort of like the idea that maybe Australia becomes heavily unionised.
Yeah,
we're down with that.
Yeah.
And so I went with their flag.
Especially because in your version of the future, it's like run by corporations.
Yes.
And it's all like the whole movies are pretty much about the fact that these people are not profitable anymore, if you can say that. And so they're just kind of left to their own devices or whatever.
Also, on the sort of dystopian angle, one thing I forgot to mention before when Aaron was talking about the credits, I really enjoyed the Blade Runner-esque opening crawl.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
That was like just, I thought that was a really nice sort of
really
touch.
nice touch.
The alien,
Sort of the, that opening sort of DOS-like typed intro.
Cool. And that was something I hadn't planned on doing. There were a few good things in this that I could actually change things to make the film flow better. I could show it to people and they would say, I didn't really know why they were in space, like, what were they doing? And I thought, well, I can put that in just an opening piece of typed text. And the other thing was too, I could change Hetfield's lines.
Oh yeah,
which I did.
Yeah,
to explain things that people didn't pick up on and so forth.
Yeah, because he's a good tool to, I guess, narrate. That's not the right word, exposition. Exposition. Yeah. Actually, it's good that you brought that up because, in addition to the astronauts, there is Hetfield, who's the ship's AI or computer, and
he's like Texan. Sort of.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say.
And also, I
From
like
South Carolina.
South Carolina, okay. I also like the fact that the soundtrack and the music.
That's what I was going to say.
Lines perfectly up with his sort of voice, so to speak.
You've got Hetfield played by John Reap.
Yes.
Who's from South Carolina.
Yes.
Did you say? And you've got Rex, the American astronaut, who has a Southern accent. And then you've got the great soundtrack by Mojo Nixon, which
the one and only Mojo Nixon,
which adds to the kind of uniqueness and quirkiness of the movie and why
like space cowboy kind of
it's like space truckers, space rednecks or whatever. Was that an early decision of like, I like country, I'm gonna put this in my movie, or was this just like, no,
that was
came about.
That was a domino effect, really. We had Hayley Dallimore, who's actually a New Zealand actress.
Yeah.
Did the southern accent, and then when I'm sort of looking at this in post, I'm going, well, what kind of music works on this? And I had tried all sorts of music. I usually just I've got a big music collection, and I try lots of things in the edit to see what works. You know, I've got loads of John Carpenter that I put in the edit to try and get it happening. And I was thinking, well, I need some, maybe some music for this. And I'm a big Mojo Nixon fan. And I was sort of looking at this, listening to the southern accent, and I was thinking, well, Mojo would probably work well with this. And I also knew, being a Mojo fan, that Mojo wouldn't, try and screw me for hundreds of thousands of dollars in licensing fees. And I also noticed that I went, hang on, in sci-fi films, country music seems to be a thing. Like it's in The Abyss.
Alien Covenant,
in a way, it kind of makes sense, right? Because it's like you got that expansion, you're exploring.
Frontier,
it's like frontier mentality in space.
Yeah.
Like me and Al's favorite character in the Expanse TV show loves country music.
It's like the whole space cowboy thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then when it came time for Hetfield's voice, that's where I thought, well, I've got Rex with the southern accent. Now I've added some Mojo Nixon to that.
Yeah, it makes it feel cohesive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One thing about Hetfield, and I still don't know how I feel about this. He doesn't sound like an AI. It's a very organic. He has an organic delivery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is not the norm for AI. Like usually when you think about AI and sci-fi, it has a very robotic monotone delivery. Whatever. Was that like a decision you came to, or was it just like we'll see how it feels, or did you let Rip decide on like the delivery?
Well, in the edit, I did the voice myself for Hetfield, and I did the voice like this. Just in a very clinical.
Yeah,
monotone. But then I thought, no, it actually needs something to liven it up.
Yeah,
and why not? And I hadn't actually consciously thought about Red Dwarf until this point. I mean, all this stuff is subconsciously in there, in the big melting pot of ideas. But that's where I thought, why not? Why not just have just a fun, just a fun voice? Yeah.
I think that's what's great about the movie is like you can see this movie playing out very much in a more derivative like 80s synth score, robotic voice AI, and it'll still be good, but it's like the way
it gives it more of a personality.
Yeah, it's more offbeat the way you ended up.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we liked about it the most. Maybe it's from necessity. You didn't have a lot of budget, but it's like this movie is more quirky and interesting. Is that because of, obviously, you didn't have the resources to be like, okay, I can pay for the $100 million John Williams score and I can do this and that. Yeah. And like, is it necessity or were these sort of, I want to make a quirky movie? In terms of like, the soundtrack and stuff like that. Because I think that's what we appreciated probably kind of the most is different.
Yeah. Yeah, because it could have easily gone...
The easiest, simplest route.
Yeah. Like I guess to make my question a bit clearer is like, did you intend to make a movie that was really quirky, or did that just come about by the fact that you had no money and you had to say get the cast involved in the writing process and stuff like that?
That's an interesting question. I set out to make like on paper. I set out to make a B movie. I said, let's make a B movie. I can't make an A movie or let's make a B movie. But then you go, now I have to forget I'm making a B movie. I have to make the best movie I can, because
if you deliberately try to make a B movie, then you end up...
That's a point we've talked about many times where people want to make a B movie, but then they throw $100 million at it and it looks terrible. Because
or they know they're making a B movie, and so they deliberately try to hit certain tropes, and
it just falls flat. Yeah.
Well, with my resources, the movie's going to be a B movie.
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
So at that point, you have to be earnest, and you're sort of naked doing this. You sort of, I mean, a good example is the antenna that blows up, the isoflux antenna. I've got a student volunteer on set. Who's trying his hardest to come up with all these props, and we need an isoflux antenna, and I said, look, they're really basic looking. There's only a couple images on the internet of what these things are, and I said, a Milo tin, how it has that sort of foil top on it, that foil top. When you take the lid off, and that foil top underneath. I said, they sort of look like that. All right. So then anyway, and off he goes. So then we're in this green screen, the actor's there, and then the props are now brought in, because this stuff's all happening in real time, right?
Yeah.
And this guy carries in a Milo tin that's been spray painted black.
So he took it very literally.
And and it had a Zorptex sticker stuck on it and everything. And so at this point, you sort of I just have to wear this. Like I'm staring at what I think is the worst prop in cinematic history. and you
Star Trek had the dog
with the little horn.
Yeah, but you're just going. I have to embrace this.
Yeah.
I have to be as enthusiastic about this as if Jodorowsky had it made for me.
I didn't even notice it. It just
and in the movie it works. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look. Here's the thing. I must admit, at the time I had to embrace it, but in the edit, I went, that still is bugging me. It looks like a Milo tin. So I did get a guy to CG it up.
Yeah.
You know, so it's an avant-garde Milo tin now.
We're running out of time, but I kind of want to talk a little bit spoilers. So if you're listening to the show and you haven't seen Astro Loco, check it out now, because I just want to talk about a couple of things. One thing is I kind of like, I don't know if this was intentional, but I like that at the end of the movie, the big battle, I mean, there is the chase scene, the rollerblades, which we said was just hilarious. But before that, I like the big battle between the good guy and the bad guy is basically a squash game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that intentional? Like, we're going to have the end fight scene be a squash game? Or were you just like, oh, they have a squash court, they're going to play? I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Okay,
I don't know.
Okay, so that scene is heavily expositional.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, and I'd read in Blake Snyder's book Save the Cat years ago that there's a technique for an expositional scene that he called Pope in the Pool.
Oh, okay.
Right, so he goes, you're at the Vatican, you've got this expositional scene where the Pope's going to explain something that's heavily expositional and very boring.
Yeah.
So what do? You have him do it from in the Vatican pool.
Yeah. It gives him something to do while he's...
Well, no, because people watching it going, oh, that's how he looks naked? Oh, okay. And, does the Vatican have a pool? Oh, okay. So it's adding all these extra sort of questions and intrigue around what's actually an expositional scene. And so I don't know, I thought Space Squash, which maybe comes from Tom Baker's last Doctor Who season. Is it Logopolis? Is that how you say it? Where they actually have Space Squash in the in the holographic machine. Anyway,
the movie definitely has like Tom Baker Doctor Who vibes as well, like that era of like Blake Seven, that kind of vibe as well.
Also, one thing I thought of, considering when this movie was written, you make the joke that Bitcoin's a preferred currency. Were you an early adopter, or was this added later
really?
on?
I don't remember that.
No, I needed something, and I thought, what are people going to be trading in the future? And I thought, Bitcoin's kind of shaky. A lot of people think it's not here. It's not here to stay. And I honestly thought maybe it's not here to stay. So I thought I'll just throw it in there, and people,
it's funny,
and people can wonder. People can wonder what the future of Bitcoin is.
Well, awesome.
There you go. Yeah.
You're ahead
So
of
I thought that was a nice touch, and I'm like, obviously it makes sense now, but hearing that this movie is written like 6-7 years ago, it's like, well, wow, okay, it's
only a few years after Bitcoin really got going as well.
Yeah, it's more interesting, in fact that's nicely relevant today. I just appreciated that.
The other kind of endy spoilery, not really spoilery, but it's like that the end shot with the two ships going off together and Hetfield kind of becoming AI friends with the other ship AI.
Dorothy, yeah.
I found that profound, and I don't like.
I wrote that down in my notes.
Was that something you just came to at the end, or was that something you were starting and being like, Hetfield isn't actually, this is his journey from the beginning, kind of thing?
Yeah. So that was supposed to be the reveal.
Oh, okay.
Because Hetfield is it's his film.
Yeah.
And I wanted to somehow disguise that, but. Yeah, and as all the human characters are dropping off,
you're
starting to wonder, well, whose film is this?
Yeah, he's the final girl.
I put an unexpectedly sweet ending with Hetfield and Dorothy in my head.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, because everyone's like turning into a cockroach and like dying in horrible ways, and Hetfield, in most movies, would be a villain.
Yes,
or would be corrupted at some point. And there is that bit in the middle where you think he has turned evil, or if he can be evil, like he's just doing what the corporation told him.
Corporate.
Yeah, and then by the end, you're just kind of like, no, he just wanted, like, to kind of be human or to have a friend or
Understand.
yeah,
and
to understand. Yeah,
and his job was always to see that crew's mission through and that they were all safe.
yeah. No, I really like that ending.
Yeah. Beautiful ending shot.
Yeah,
That's what, like, one of my notes is like, again, it looks so nice. Like, there's so many great shots.
And that's a NASA photograph that you can download.
Oh,
That explains
All
why,
the
yeah.
royalty-free resources. Yeah.
Well, you got to do what you got to
take
do.
what you can get.
It's so
Yeah.
interesting that you're essentially a guerrilla filmmaker, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there needs to be more people taking chances in making the films that they want to make. Because, like, so often we talk on the show, we talk about there being too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, we feel like people can't really make the movies they want to make. And that's the downside, I guess, to having a huge production studio behind you, or a huge studio, rather, is because then they have more influence over the cake in the oven, so to speak.
Yeah,
like-
and I understand what you're saying, but they could have also helped me bake a nicer cake.
Yeah, no, talking about, I understand definitely not the ideal situation.
Yeah,
But it's like, it's great to see that there's indie filmmakers like kind of trying to do what they can. Because like, I'd love to. It's such a shame we couldn't get to see it and, like, you know, the movie. I know it wouldn't maybe not look great blown up to like 8K cinema screen or what have you. But it's like, it's such a shame that like it's not in the movies. I feel like years ago you'd be able to just go and see a movie in the theaters. Like, smaller movies got more screen time.
maybe.
But now, I mean, we complain all the time about, like, we went to see The Last Duel by Ridley Scott, and we got to our local theater, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, we cancelled the last session."
Yeah,
and
I mean that wasn't even on the big screen. That was in the tiny cinemas for what, a week?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it only
And,
played
like-
it for a few days.
like,
in the
now it's
US.
all just Marvel movies, as far as I
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah.
So it's
But-
encouraging to see
yeah.
that there's indie people still trying to
But
get
it's,
things
yeah,
done.
it's cool that streaming has allowed, like, movies like this to see it, find an audience, because, like, you know, it was so hard for you to finally get it out there. So I guess it's good that you have the opportunity with streaming.
Yeah, and
Anyway.
but I was gonna say the tough thing is though that a small, modest B movie like this has only got a limited niche. I suppose the difficult thing is you've actually got to fire at everybody,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so a lot of people are going to watch this and hate it.
yeah.
And that's, you know, I suppose collateral damage in getting it
Yeah.
to the
It's the Netflix, the
to the
Netflix
niche.
problem
Yeah.
of, like, everyone hates Netflix stuff is because it's not tailored to everyone, but it's available to everyone.
yeah.
Which I guess is good because otherwise we probably wouldn't have seen it. And you know, and it's available for people to when we recommend it.
Yeah.
It's easy for them to find. Although Callum and I were talking, we were like, if you can get a Blu-ray,
Yeah, I was actually saying, I messaged James last night,
You
and
know.
I'm like, I would unironically buy this movie on Blu-ray
You
if
know,
it was available.
if that's an option, you can.
Especially
can
because,
work on.
like we've talked about before, like B movies can be so expensive to acquire on Blu-ray. So there's this whole thing about preservation that we believe
Yeah.
in. But I'm assuming there's no current Blu-ray schedule.
Look, the guy that did the poster's actually done the Blu-ray artwork. I think he did it ironically, but you know, maybe we'll use it sometime. I haven't seen a sales report yet, so I don't know what the viewership is for this. Honestly don't know how many people have watched it. I don't know what the interest would be.
Yeah.
I would assume, I don't know if assuming is a good idea, but I would assume the distributor would say to me, maybe we should do this on Blu-ray and sell it in Walmart. I honestly don't know
Yeah.
what the future of this film is.
No. Yeah, but that's something I was hoping for because
Yeah,
I collect physical.
Well, hang on. We've got two people have committed to.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it. 66% of your known viewership.
everyone listening to this must buy
That's
a
it.
copy of Astro Loco when it comes available.
All right. So, as a man who has not yet watched the movie, I still have a question. Because, well, my forte is medical science and stuff. I've got no idea about movie production and those sorts of things. So, since you've been working at it for so long, my question is obviously you wrote the script, so you had an idea of what the story was. How much did you see it change from, like, once you started film or stopped filming, started the editing, until the point where you said, "This is my finished product"? Like, was there a big change in kind of where you saw it going, or was it you kind of just always had that in mind and that's where it went?
It actually got better than I anticipated. To be honest, there were certain things that I went, this is looking better than I thought. When the sound designer Marcus Callow did the sound design on it, and also when Tim Johnson and Matt Bissett-Johnson did the score, I went, this is sounding a lot better, and that makes it look better. When it sounds better, it looks better. Yeah. And so, things like that. I was pleasantly surprised. In terms of the original vision, there was some vision, but other things I thought, I can't have expectations for this because they are just not going to be met.
So one quick question. I wouldn't say that I have a writing background, but I have a degree, and I kind of paid attention when I was studying. But this is also Stephen King. Also, I've read his book on writing.
Yep.
He says that, like, I've heard him speak before. He says there's two types of writers. There's the architect who must, intricately plan out every story beat, and then there's gardeners who have an idea, but the joy of writing is discovering along the way. Where would you say you fall on that spectrum?
I suppose I write because no one else is writing for me. I don't necessarily think I'm a great writer, but I know a little bit about it. In terms of this one, I thought at the time the type of B movie that's playing well on streaming is the type that sort of takes the mickey out of the Hollywood sort of structured script. So I went, right, I will do Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. As much as I don't really agree with this kind of thing, I'm gonna do his process in earnest.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna have something that's by the numbers, hits the beats where it's supposed to hit the beats. I mean, the quality of the beats are another story, but this one does actually hit all the beats.
So you didn't find the characters changing as you went along, because the things I've attempted, you find that the characters almost take on a life of their own and they react to things. As you're writing, you'll think, well, they have this personality, but then something will pop out of the woods at you.
But that was also down to the collaboration with the actors as well.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, it was. And so when the actors were cast, that's when they did start to take a life of their own, and they were making decisions based on
I know that there are
cast.
some directors who are like, it has to be my way. But then there are some directors who have a more collaborative way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about the Scorsese type director that gets something professionally storyboarded and wants that set to look exactly how it does in storyboards. Well, I cannot afford that. Yeah, this thing is going to fall apart in a nanosecond if I walk in with that mindset.
Yeah.
So I had to walk in with a very loose mindset about what this can be. It was supposed to be DIY, and I suppose run with that DIY philosophy. Yeah. And I was just going to try and, it's like not even herding cats, herding bees.
Yeah.
Wrangling angry bees. It's like,
you just got to roll with the punches and see where it goes.
Yeah, you go, these bees are not going to do what I want them to do.
But at the end of it, you'll have honey.
Look, it worked.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we think it worked.
Thank you.
But then again, we're also wrong a lot of the time. So.
Yeah.
Well, are we though?
Yeah.
It's
the children that are wrong.
Look, make me feel good.
No.
That's
we actually, when we review movies, we have a very not dispassionate, but we take it for what it is. So there's no we don't have any there's no institutions behind us. We don't get paid.
Yeah.
So our feelings are generally authentic. Not to say that we argue sometimes, we don't always agree, but we can safely say we enjoyed your film.
No, go watch it. It's on Tubi, Amazon Prime, the Google Play Store.
Yeah.
Do you have a website?
Do you have any
plug?
social medias or?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Astro Loco movie on Facebook, Instagram, and there's a website as well. I'm not a great social media person, but we do have some social media there.
Cool.
Cool.
One more important question: how do you feel about Star Wars? No, just don't answer that.
Podcast listeners can expect a 4-hour special. That's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
No, it
No,
was.
thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
thank you.
It was a good movie. You can catch the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Shout Engine, wherever you listen. Please like and share the Facebook, the Twitter, all the other socials that we may or may not
Ring
be
that
active
bell.
on. Ring the
Send
bell.
us a heart emoji or whatever.
Yeah, send us a heart emoji.
And watch
Astro Loco.
Astro Loco.
It's available everywhere, basically. Thank you for listening, everybody. Good night.